Welcome to today's episode. Happy New Year to everyone out there. Today is actually January 1st, and I thought I'd make a really quick video, guys, for you because I'm super excited. The last couple weeks I've been really busy, and I've actually managed to get a set of American Racing 1 7/8 long tube headers on the car with no cats. And as you can probably tell by the name of this video, it is extremely loud. I think I'm actually going to do a couple things here, which I'll go over in a minute to show you guys what I'm gonna do to try and quiet it down just a little bit. But you guys gotta hear this thing. I wanted you to hear it before I went ahead and did that so that you have an understanding of just how insanely loud this car is when you only have a set of mufflers in the back. Keeping in mind, I have over axle tubes on this thing, 2 3/4, and they have no resonators in them. I have no catalytic converters anymore, and I just have the OEM 2013, 2014 GT500 mufflers on the back. And that combination, I mean, just in the garage here, and I drove it around the block really quickly, way too loud. When I do some road racing stuff, a couple of the tracks I go to, they actually have a dB meter out on one of the straightaways, and they're listening to you. And if you're too loud, they will kick you off the track. And I'm kind of thinking this is going to be a little bit too loud. So that being said, I want to show you guys what they look like. We'll get under the car in a few minutes. I'll show you what they look like underneath, and then we'll fire this thing up. But I kind of want to also show you guys what I've been working on as well. There's been a couple of really cool things, and I'm working on the last bits of the factory suspension in the front end of the car. Once I've gone ahead and made these changes, which I'm going to show you, the whole suspension on the entire car is now going to be upgraded. There will be nothing left that is stock. Nothing. So that's kind of cool, but I want to show you guys that first. So we'll go over a couple other really cool, exciting things. I'm going to tease you a little bit, and then we'll get to the exhaust in just a minute. But let me show you the front end so far. All right. So right now, guys, what I'm working on is replacing a couple things in the front. So the OEM ball joints are still in. These are going to be coming out, and you can kind of see a wrench. I'm trying to work on one of the bushings that's just tucked in there. And then you've obviously got the massive one just right in here. These are getting changed out to some energy suspension bushings. And the ball joint, unlike what a lot of people do where they do those extended ball joints, I'm actually going with something called a Howell joint. So Howell ball joint. So I'll show you guys how all this stuff works. So this is a threaded collar that's actually going to get welded in where the factory press-in ball joint normally goes. This guy threads into it, and this is a low friction Howell joint. So it's a Howell ball joint. It's an extended one as well. This is from Watson Racing. So you can see there's the detent for the bolt. And what this is doing is it's correcting the geometry for the front lower control arms. One of the issues when you go and lower these cars, or you lower any car, control arm's not in the same position as it was from the factory. So you're actually reducing the leverage the suspension has to work with. So by putting an extended ball joint in, you're hopefully going to solve that problem. Now there's some other ones out on the market, but the fact that I am doing a lot of road race kind of stuff with the car now, I wanted to go with something that was going to be easy to service. You know, after people who actually race these cars, like Boss 302S's, Boss 302Rs, they come with these. This is the actual piece that is in those cars, and they would replace them every year. They should. I'm probably going to replace them every 2 years on mine. And we'll see how that goes. I mean, I'll definitely check them out after the end of next season in the winter, just like this time next year, and see what it looks like. But that's the dust boot, and that's kind of what they look like roughly once they've been installed. Keeping in mind this part here is going to get welded in. I'm going to take it to a guy and get that all done. But I have been working on these guys. So I had a spare set of these. Good buddy of mine, Dylan, he gave me the ones that he had on his car. He doesn't need any more. So we got those all cleaned up, repainted them, and that's the bushing inside. Now, there's a couple other options out there. Ford Racing does have a really nice piece, but it's a hell of a lot more money. And I wasn't quite certain if I wanted to do that at first. I was holding out because of the headers. I wanted to see how much room I actually needed, because they say, you know, gives you more room for headers and stuff like that. After I put the American Racing headers in the car, I realized I didn't really need much more room. So, you know, working a little bit more on a budget right now, I decided to go with these guys. This goes into the front of the control arm, so that replaces that other bushing. We saw that wrench kind of jammed in there right now. I had to stop just because I wanted to get this thing filming. But that's going to be the whole front end. Now you're probably seeing this guy. This is another part of the next kind of project that I'm working on right now. So I'm gonna drop the K-member. I didn't do this while I was doing the header installation for a couple of reasons. I decided to do the method where we pull the motor mounts out of the car, and that allows us to get the room to get the header in. So I didn't need to drop the K-member. And the problem with doing it that way, well, not necessarily a problem, is you can't do the oil pan at the same time because you're taking the engine mount out. To do this oil pan, the best way to do is to run some straps up above and support the engine from the top, as well as do one at the bell housing on the transmission, and then drop the whole K-member so you got access to the oil pan. You can pull this out. So that's what I'm going to start doing while I've got my control arms out getting welded for these guys. So we'll get all that stuff welded on. While that's out, we'll get that on. This is what I'm going to do, try and help solve that exhaust issue. I'm going to replace the clamps that are just go on the X pipe now. You know, factory used to be the H pipe. The ones I use them, the OEM ones, real quickly, but they're a little rusted out. So managed to get these from Vibrant. They are a 2 3/4, which is really hard to find. 2 3/4 band clamp, so that I can actually just put those right back to the factory, not factory, but my over axle tubes. So I just want to get some fresh ones of those. But I had the guys over at Stainless Header Works actually make this up for me. So this is their 8-inch racing muffler. Is a true straight through muffler, as you can see, right? They just do like a stainless steel pack in it. It is 304 stainless steel. And this is their 3-inch inside diameter, sorry. It's like 3 1/4 on the outside. And then they custom did these reducers for me to neck it down to 2 3/4. So I can get these welded up, and I'm gonna get them welded slightly a little bit more forward. Like if we're looking at the side of the car, you know, you've got your H pipes, and then you've got your over axle tubes, and normally your factory resonators are kind of hanging out over here. I'm finding that I'm actually scraping that section of the pipe at some of the corners I take. So I'm gonna move them a little bit closer to kind of where those band clamps are, where these guys actually go. It'll probably be about another 4 inches out. So you'll have the band clamp to the American Racing Headers X pipe, then a couple more inches, you'll have one of those guys on there. So that's gonna kind of be what I'm hoping will reduce the noise a little bit. I do not want to run catalytic. I don't want to run catalytic converters on the car. One of the main reasons being is, you know, when you're drag racing, a lot of guys don't want to run them anyways, right? They restrict flow, they do all those things, but more importantly, you will melt them. Now, in my car, 20-minute session on that road racing track, I'm between that 5,000 to 7,200 RPM range almost the whole time. That's a lot of heat, and that's just gonna melt them out. There's no point in doing them, they're just gonna burn out. So I was thinking that if those mufflers don't help, I might get their 2-inch version and weld them in where the factory, or not factory, but where American Racing would put their racing cats, just to see if that helps. I'm not 100% certain on that yet because there's still a lot of heat in that area. I don't know how well those things are gonna hold up to that heat. So I figured I'd get these ones on first, see what it sounds like, and then we'll go from there. So, all right guys, I'm not gonna waste any more time. I'm gonna hop in the car right now. We'll fire it up. I'll open the garage door, I'll cut back to it, and then you guys will see how loud this thing is. It's loud. All right, sorry neighbors. All right. I know I'm teasing you guys, I get it. A couple other things. Started working on a proper set of Schroth harnesses. I had some other ones in the car, I had the quick fits. Not bad, but one of the biggest gripes I have with them is they're designed to work when you have rear seats still installed in the car. I do not. I've obviously got the cage. So the idea was, you know what? I might as well utilize this cage, and I'm gonna get, these guys are designed to be wrapped around the bar like they're supposed to be properly done. And I'll show you guys what we also did. Oh, don't know if I can get this. Hold on a sec. There's the other side of it. Let's see if I can get this. Hold on. All right, I'll cut back on this one. So this is actually the Watson Racing new lap belt bar that they actually just came out with a couple months ago. So this guy installs just to the factory seats, clips on there, and there you have it. Right now you've got your rear ones. You don't have to actually drill any more holes into the body of your car. You know, as much as I'm modifying the heck out of this thing, I just don't want to be drilling any more holes into it if I don't have to. So that being said, that's kind of what I've got going on there. All right, guys. If you are wearing headphones, I am telling you now, turn it down. This is gonna get real loud real quick, guys. Yeah, that's a little loud, just a little. That cold start, right? I mean, when it's cold start, it's gonna be super loud. I'll let it warm up a few minutes, we'll cut back, I'll show you guys what it sounds like when it's idling. I do love how this thing idles now with the track idle engage. That takes a couple minutes to warm up and then you can hear it. I really don't want to get rid of that noise, so I'm hoping these straight through mufflers are actually gonna really help that out and they're gonna sound awesome. Which, by the way, I forgot to mention, a good buddy of mine got me this shirt for Christmas. It's a Mustang Boss 302 shirt. He found it down when he was in the States, and a good friend found that for me and said he knew I had to have it, so really appreciate that. Been wearing it a lot this week actually, but not when I'm working on the car. I don't want to get it dirty. All right guys, let's let this thing warm up just a little bit, and then I'll cut back and you guys can hear what this thing sounds like when it's idling. All right, give me just a couple minutes. All right, I hope that's been long enough. Let's go hop in the car and let's find out if it's now gonna do a little track idle. All right, one sec. Well, there's only one way to engage track idle, that's to give it a little quick rev. So again, headphone wearers, I turn it down right now. Ooh, she's not quite ready yet. Needs a few more minutes, I guess. But my God, is that ever loud. All right, when it cools off as well, or when I turn it off, I'll actually show you guys the headers. I'll crawl underneath the car. I'll use my GoPro for that, so you'll see the footage look a little bit different. But I'll show you the underneath of the car and give you an idea of how I actually got them into the car, and I'll show you some of the view from the top. I think American Racing headers actually changed these headers recently because the fit and finish on them is so much better than some of the other ones that I've heard about. One of my local guys, the guy who does all my dyno tuning for my car, you've seen him over at Mopac there, Nick. He's done quite a few headers on S197s. He highly recommended the American Racing ones to me, and he's like, these are gonna sound way better, they're gonna fit way better, they'll be the better header, they'll make more power. So, and he said some of the other ones out there, Cooks, for example, were really good, but he feels that they have kind of gone downhill a little bit, so they're not as good as they used to be. So I decided to go with these. But after I installed them, he's like, oh, how was it fitting around this section? And what about this? And I'll show you guys all that in a minute. And I told him, I said it was fine. I had no issues whatsoever putting them on. I installed these headers with the car on the set of quick jacks here. I took my time. I'm not driving the car this winter, so that's one thing. You guys all know I drove the car last year for an entire year straight. I did that intentionally because I knew that I was gonna do this massive undertaking and completely take the car to one extreme. And once I did that, I didn't want to start driving the car in the winter. All the suspension under the car is all new. It's all racing suspension, it's all rod ends. I don't want that stuff getting corrosion on it, salt, all that kind of fun stuff. So I decided, you know what? This winter, I'll tackle all the really annoying projects, like doing headers, that I know are gonna take a lot of time, a lot of knuckle busting. I got scars all over my hands from doing it. And I figured, you know what? I'll just do a couple hours at a time. You know, when I get frustrated, I'll drink a few beers and then I'll head inside, right? So it took me a few weekends, to be honest, but it wasn't that bad. It was just more time consuming and tedious, and you're putting your body in a lot of awkward positions to kind of get to a couple of bolts and some stuff like that to remove some things. So I'll go over that when we go underneath the car, but I think it's warmed up. Let's give it one more chance. Let's see if it's actually gonna kick over to track idle now. I'll give it one more blip, and then I hope it'll do it now. So here we go. Once again, headphone users, turn it down, do something, man. There we go. Oh, absolutely love this sound. Check it out, guys. Now, one important thing that I want to point out is even though they are American Racing long tube headers. I didn't get the Boss 302 specific ones, so I don't have the side exits anymore. And truth be told, how loud this thing is, I didn't want side exits on with no cats. I just thought that'd be way too loud. There's a couple of retaining walls that I end up getting really close to on a couple of racetracks. And last year when I was cracking the throttle and rev matching and down gearing, and that crack was hitting the wall and reverbing back at me, I had a helmet on and I was going, wow, that's loud. So I could only imagine if I had them on this car now, how loud that would have been. But God, it sounds so good. All right, guys, I'm gonna shut it off and I'll start showing you what they look like. All right, give me 1 sec.
I went to go use the GoPro and apparently that thing just sucks at low light. So I'm back on my Sony camera here, guys. So I'll try my best here to show you. But just right in there is the actual engine mount that you had to pull out. And you can see the headers fit nicely around the steering rack. There's no issues there whatsoever with them touching anything. And that's on the driver's side. Passenger side, as you can see, lots of room around the starter. I don't have any problems there. And if you can kind of see up, there's quite a bit of light right around that frame rail and just above the motor mount, which I can kind of see if I can point out. Motor mounts right there. Lots of room for this primary right there, so no issues whatsoever. But here's why she's so loud. I mean, no catalytic converters whatsoever. The only gripe, and one thing I will admit that, you know, I'm not running into this issue yet, but it is something I've thought about, is if you run E85, because there's a lot of moisture in the exhaust now, having the O2 sensor laying flat like this, a lot of water can kind of foul up those, and some guys are having to change them out quite frequently. I did notice, however, though, that the rears are actually on a really nice kind of upward angle, so they would drip anything off, so those aren't going to be much of an issue. It's just that guy. It's just pretty much dead flat, level. You can see that. And that, I think, is going to cause a problem over time. So I don't know if I'm going to run E85. I'm really thinking about it. So it's just not that available up here in Canada. We're in Vancouver again, so I don't have access to it. There's like 2 gas stations. But, I mean, for the price point, for the extra power you can make, and a lot of guys can do these flex tunes with these cars because of the Y-band. So it's definitely something to think about. But nonetheless, all right, continuing on. And I'm actually on a creeper right now, so if you hear the noise, it's just so that I don't, well, ruin that really nice shirt of mine. So here's where I was thinking, guys. So as you can see, I've got the OEM band clamps on there, a little rusted, whatever. I just thought, you know, they were cheap enough. I can get some new ones. And I'm going to weld in those mufflers right about here. If I do it farther over there, getting close to where they start to go up, you'll see there's a lot of scrapes, especially on this one. And that's, you know, speed bumps, all that kind of fun stuff. A lot of that kind of stuff's the reason for that happening. But, you know, if I can do it a little bit closer over here, I don't see any scrape marks. So I'm hoping that means that they'll be fine. I will try and cinch them up a little bit more. You know, we got the headers in, and I just really wanted to fire it up and get this video done for you guys so you could hear it before I go ahead and do this section, because then you won't know what it did sound like. But yeah. Good view back here, though. Size of these tires is insane, especially when you're underneath. One thing I am wanting to do real soon for you guys is actually do a quick video at my buddy's shop where he's actually got a proper hoist. We can get the car up in the air, and we can do a little bit more in depth under the car, because obviously that's where all the money has been spent and everything I've done. There's the Ford Racing one-piece drive shaft on the guy, as you can see. It goes all the way through, but beautiful drive shaft. I've been really happy with that thing so far. My rebuilt MT82 transmission, that's so far been holding out just fine. I've got that spec clutch in there with the light and steel flywheel. And we did install the MGW race spec shifter in there. The guys at MGW hooked me up. I really appreciated that. Because I had the first generation shifter in there, they helped me out with the cost of the new one, and that was greatly appreciated. So that thing's been running solid in the car. Definitely loving that. As we go, you know, I did have the Laguna Seca unit in there for the transmission cooler.
it helps a little bit, I guess, but as you can see, it gets scraped up pretty good. And I mean, there's those headers, right? That's pretty good shot of them there, right there for you. So I'm hoping these things are gonna last. I mean, they look pretty solid. I'm definitely happy with them. So we'll see how they sound once I start driving around a little bit more. We are gonna get the car on the dyno. So yeah, I'll talk about that here in just a second. All right, so the last couple of videos I posted with the car on the dyno, and I've got some other clips here as well. The numbers have never really been stellar, something to brag about, something to go, wow, look how much power this car is actually making. The reason being for that has really been timing. Every time I brought the car down to get a dyno tune done, to make an adjustment to my tune, it's been summertime. It's been super hot, very humid, and the car just starts pulling timing out like crazy because it gets its air intake temperatures too high. It starts to think that the NOx sensors are going, and it's just pulling out. All my friend could really do is go, okay, your air fuel ratios are perfect, your timing is perfect, I know the motor's running really well, it's running safe, it will make lots of power, but it's summer. And he begged and begged and begged me. He goes, bring me this car during the winter when it's really cold. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna do a set of long tubes this winter, so why don't I bring it then? So that's what we're gonna do next, guys. Hopefully in the next couple of weeks, what I'm aiming for is a beautiful, sunny, cold day that hasn't rained or it's been frozen for quite a while, so we can get that moisture out of the air as well. Then we can kind of give you a really high number, I guess you would say, as to what the car makes. Unfortunately, the car still seems to produce around 400 to the tires right now, and that's not very much. Even after, when I dynoed the car stock, it almost made 400 to the tires. So I gained like 8 horsepower off of a tune, you know, when we were looking at just based on the temperature. So he knew it was making way more power than that. And we had to kind of base it off of, okay, when it was completely stock and it was a little bit colder out in the spring, it made 400. But when we brought it into them and we were trying to do the dyno tune on the car when it was super hot, it was like making like 360. So we gained 40 horsepower. We're like, well, it's a gain of 40, but it's right back to 400. So it wasn't really, you know, a high number. It wasn't making like 440 or something like that we kind of hope it will make. So we're not sure. So that being said, as you guys know, I got a ton of parts right behind me right there to work on the car. I am going to keep trying to post videos, especially now that I've got the garage reno somewhat done. I'm still working on it. I'll probably work on it some more in the spring when the weather's a little bit nicer, but it is warm in here, so the Canadian winters aren't really getting to me that bad, and I can kind of make some content for you guys. So thank you so much. Happy New Year. I hope you guys enjoy your 2019. See you next time. Bye.